Hi. Okay. When I graduated college, I didn't stay in New York City like most of my friends. Instead, I left even before graduation day, opting to take an Amtrak across country instead of getting on a plane because I thought I would die if I got on a plane. The plane thing was definitely new. I used to love riding them when I was a kid, and turbulence was my favorite. My mom told me that when I was little, I liked to scream yee-haw, like I was one of those hot sluts riding Mechanical Bull and Coyote Ugly. Picture exactly this, but I'm a fat 8-year-old in seat 43B of a Southwest domestic flight. My therapist told me years later that the fear of dying right when you graduate college is totally normal because it's the end of a predetermined life path, and your brain is like, well, we did it, time to die, we earned it. So I stepped off the Amtrak in Emeryville, California, which is a delightful little city in the SF Bay Area that's home to both Pixar Studios and the former stomping grounds of infamous serial killer Robert Joseph Silveria, aka the Boxcar Killer. Yikes. I got off the train and moved back into my parents' house. It is then that I fell face first into a severe depression that I'm pretty sure lasted most of my 20s, but that is for another story. Instead of moving to Los Angeles to pursue a career in TV writing, for which I had planned to do, and which my parents had paid tens of thousands of dollars for me to do, to learn the rule of threes in comedy and write bad scripts while not even doing that many hard drugs, I know, what a fucking waste, I instead decided to live in my childhood bedroom and cry a lot. One day, during a break between crying jags, instead of looking for a job, I drove to the closest animal shelter and inquired about volunteering. I chose the animal shelter because I didn't want to deal with other humans who might question why I was openly weeping 5 to 9 times a day. A dog wouldn't give a shit if I was hanging on by a thread. So I spent my days walking dogs and cleaning cat cages. When you walk a dog nearly every day, you become attached to them, and that happened to me with one darling, perfect angel baby pit bull named Mabel. I loved her, and I cared for her, and I projected all of my emotions onto her, which is perfectly healthy. Also, I'm sorry that you're still looking at the Boxcar Killer, but he's gonna be up for another second. One day I came in and Mabel was gone. I asked about who adopted her and was told that she wasn't adopted. I still remember standing in the office of the shelter, stomach sinking, realizing what had happened. This began truly the darkest period of my life. Because of what had happened to Mabel and because I had no coping mechanisms, I threw myself into the shelter life. I started volunteering several times a day and micromanaging like a real SOB. I had the righteous fury of Norma Ray, the brutal takedowns of Judge Judy, and the cold-blooded psycho vibes of Patrick Bateman. Rules of 3, everyone. I didn't like how you cleaned the cage. Do it again. You gave a large dog a small ball. That's a potential choking hazard. You need to think about your actions. Use the wrong collar to walk a chihuahua. You're a bad person. You're going to hell, which is exactly where you belong, you absolute piece of incredible shit. And I rose up the ranks. I was finally offered a job because Kate, the head of the Berkeley City Shelter, was like, if we can't get rid of this little psycho, might as well employ her. I was given the keys to the castle, and that's when you best believe things got really nuts. Thus began the actual truly darkest period of my life. Here's the thing about animal rescue. You might be sitting there thinking that people who dedicate their lives to saving shelter animals are the most benevolent, selfless, truly godlike angels who walk amongst us, doing the shit work the rest of us can't do with no needs for thanks or even a paycheck. Like this guy. He's benevolent, selfless, needs no thanks, no paycheck, probably has a normal home. Well, maybe not this specific guy, but you get the idea. So yeah, that's a few animal rescue people. But the vast majority of us, we're a bunch of needy assholes with martyr complexes who can't meaningfully connect with other humans because of some sort of personality defect, and therefore spend our lives splitting our sad dinners of tofurkey sandwiches with the 7 dogs who, oh, by the way, live in our minivans with us. And I'm only being a little bit dramatic. And honestly, you guys, I loved it. Being a martyr meant that people couldn't bother me about why I hadn't done anything with my $10 million degree, and why I was 21 and still living with my parents, and why my tangled hair always smelled like wet dog food. I was untouchable. You can't say shit to the person who is out there saving the weak and the vulnerable, and it gave me a free pass to say fuck it to the rest of my life. No job, no partner, no problem. I had dogs, and you can't say boo to me about it because I'm a goddamn living saint. Okay, thus began the truly darkest period of my life. The thing you should know about the Berkeley shelter at this time is that it was basically a prime example of what a shelter should be. Amazing animal control officers, a robust volunteer program, excellent adoption statistics. So my insanity was of limited use there. Thankfully, there were other shelters in other cities nearby. Now, they were much more crowded, much higher kill, and without the active community of Berkeley. And that's where I could really go buck wild. Now, one day at the Richmond shelter, a mutt named Shithead was surrendered. I know, meaning his people didn't want him anymore, so they dumped him at the shelter to die. You can imagine the wonderful things I said to these people. Since Shithead slightly resembled a pit bull, who, side note, are the most pervasive breeds at most shelters, and there's a lot of stigma surrounding them because it's basically just super racist and shitty, and honestly, they're the best fucking dogs ever. But anyway, since Shithead slightly resembled a pit bull, he was basically given a death sentence. I decided at that point to pull Shithead out of the shelter under the name of the rescue group I sometimes volunteered with. That's right, having an actual shelter job did not stop me from also volunteering at a rescue. I think you're catching on that I was not doing well. So, I took Shithead out of the shelter. I renamed him Brows because he looked like he had this honest-to-goodness, most beautiful eyebrows of a Hollywood starlet, and also because when you're naming all the times, naming dogs all the time, you just run out of fucking names. So after I pulled him, I promptly freaked the fuck out because I had nowhere to put him. I'd run out of room in my apartment. I already had a dog. I was living in my minivan, true. And all of my friends hated me because I was either saddling them with dogs or sobbing on their couches. But there was one other option, night drop boxes. Now, for those unfamiliar with the concept of the night drop box, the idea is they're large, secure boxes in front of animal shelters where people can leave strays they find or surrender their pets during the hours the shelter isn't open. Of course, using night drop boxes as an actual employee of the shelter would have been a major no-no. And I bet you're asking yourself if that stopped me from using them, and I think you already know the answer. Thus began the truly darkest period of my life. During the day, I would pull dogs, and then in the dark of night, I'd leave the dogs in night drop boxes at the Berkeley shelter. I did this together with Joy, my childhood BFF / current roommate who was also severely depressed, what luck, and who I lived with at this point in old naval housing that would soon be torn down because of the toxins in the ground. Very cool. And just to paint a picture of our living situation, actress / comedian / lunatic Phyllis Diller was once interviewed on a TV show about the worst time of her life, which she said was spent living in the naval housing in Alameda, and then on the TV they showed a picture of our actual apartment. It's a fucking true story. Okay, so back to the night drop boxes. After our first successful drop of Brows, I started to pull dogs out the wazoo and sneak them into the boxes in the dead of night. And I got creative, putting all manner of costume on to drop the dogs off because there was cameras. Joy worked at a nearby Shakespeare theater company during the day, which allowed for creativity. We started in basic black hoodies pulled over our faces, but then progressed into extras outfits from the Mary's Wives of Windsor. I wish I could say this is how I lived my life for a few crazy months before moving to Los Angeles and becoming a Kardashian, but that is surprisingly not the case. It went on this way for years, my friends. At this time, a little bit later, Joy and I were in the process of being evicted for having too many dogs, and we fought back, denying the claims so hard, just straight up lied our asses off. And we were winning. We were doing so well. But then the apartment rental company brought in a black light to look for signs of damage to the property. Oh no. It was then that we knew we were so fucked. They turned on the black light and our place lit up like the back room of the nastiest sex club you've ever seen. It was like Jackson Pollock painting, only less restrained. Like the place was just smothered in every excrement that could come out of 100+ dogs who had lived there. Even thinking about it sends shivers down my spine. I'm so sorry for this picture. You guys, 100 dogs. Close your eyes and think about 100 dogs. Sir, you need to do it too. Now, you would think that getting evicted from my apartment would have curbed my behavior. It did for Joy. She quickly got her own place away from me, where she lived with one dog and landed a big deal job at a prestigious theater company, but things just got worse for me. Let me just say that my new Toyota Previa minivan did not stay new for long. And what I mean by this is I used it as a home for dogs, parking it down the street from my parents' house, which I was back in, by the way. I was still on a mission to save all the dogs, but you can't save them all. As it turns out, Browse, nay shithead, had real issues with human biting, and in the world of adoption, that is the only thing that won't fly with Johnny Law. It's not common in shelters for someone to sit with a dog when they're euthanized. It's honestly a very scary, very lonely thing. Abandoned animals, who have nobody in the world, are in a cold, strange place. They're given a sedative, and they're given a shot that kills them. It is awful. I asked to be with Browse as it happened because, well, I loved him, and if I couldn't save him, I wanted to sit with him. I held Browse, and I vowed to never forget him, and I haven't. But I also knew that I had to make some changes. I had to save myself, because this was literally the darkest period of my life. I wish I could say it was Brow's death that got me out of the game, but it was only the beginning. Healing takes time. It took several breakdowns in therapy, moving to a new city and into a house where I could not get away with unlimited dogs, buying a new car that I did not want to become a literal shitbox, and getting into a solid romantic relationship with a human, go me, to curb my ways. As they say, it takes a village of people who are more sane than you are. Now I live in LA and I write for TV sometimes, which is very cool. I live with one dog. Her name is Coco. She started as a foster and she just stole my heart and I couldn't give her up. Just kidding. She couldn't get adopted because she's batshit. But I do love her, and I'm also proud/shocked to say that I'm married to a human. Huge. And I still get depressed, but now I managed it with therapy and medication instead of 15 dogs in the back of my car. Which, who knows, one day I might hold a child. Just kidding. Like, would you trust me with a kid? Truly, shame on you for ever believing that could ever happen after listening to this story. But my Prius is surprisingly spacious, so probably one day there'll be room for 2 dogs, maybe 3. Okay, 4 maximum. And that is my story. Thank you.